Alright, here we are. Let me actually... Oh, I need a piece of chocolate after the meal. Oh boy. Okay. Okay, food stream. So, we are gathered here today to talk about Russian music and music with Russian elements in video games. So, I'm actually wondering how many people would care about this topic, because it's like kind of niche. Yeah, chocolate to start the live stream. It's like strawberry cheesecake chocolate. It's like really cool. Okay. Background. Exposition. Let's start with some exposition. So, I originate from Russia. So I kind of know the language. Kind of, like not really that well, because I haven't really spoken Russian fluently since like in 15 years, pretty much. Like I was born there and I was speaking Russian until I was like 7 or so. But like I spoke less and less Russian, and then I guess pretty much just talked German at one point. Quite interested because Tetris uses it, so I wonder why. That will be a twist. Okay, but yeah. So yeah, I kind of know the language. I am studying Slavistics here as a minor, if that's the right translation. It's like the second thingy that you have to study here. Second subject, I guess. And there I have to learn Russian as well, or like you can choose one Slavic language, and I chose Russian. So I am kind of getting there to becoming a more full-fledged Russian speaker. And I am like this paper is kind of the combination of my two main research focuses, I guess, focal points, main areas: Russian music, mainly Russian popular music, and Russian folk music. Not really much the like art music department. I'm not too interested in that. And my second main focus is ludomusicology, meaning like Russian, meaning video game music. So yeah, this is kind of the combination of both. This was graded. I finished it on October 14th, and my professor already finished grading it like pretty much half a month or a month later, which was really fast. So yeah, and I got my grade. 3 Polosky. Well, it does actually feature hard base, this paper. So yeah, and I got my grade. You are allowed to guess which grade I got. Like, I guess you can use the American system between A and F, I guess. A, B, C, D, E, F. I guess I couldn't really translate it into like the Asian system with 100 points. I have no idea what corresponds to what grade there. So yeah, this paper is in German, but I'm gonna explain everything in Russian, everything I say here. And yeah, I am curious to see how many will actually click on this video after the live stream is over. SS Plus. Oof, that's like beat 'em up or like live action, not live action. What's it called? Like, well, action, I guess. Action RPG thingies. Probably A. Oh boy. You have really big expectations in me, but you're not wrong. So yeah, I got an A for this, like a straight A. I was like, what? He was like, yeah. So yeah, I guess my first, maybe only A in this like thing. Like I got, like the next best grade I got was an A minus in harmony theory. But yeah, actually curious how many people will actually watch this video after it's up, because I did get quite a lot of viewers on my videos about composing Russian music, the vocal side and the instrumental side. Like I got almost 1,000 on my instrumental one, I think, Russian instrumental music. Let me actually pull them up so you can see what I'm talking about. There we go. Yeah, they have quite a few. 8,000 on the first one about songs, and 1,500 for the instruments and instrumental music one. So yeah. So maybe people will be interested in seeing this. Like if you get a bad grade, I don't think you'll ask the viewer your grade. You are kind of correct. I probably wouldn't. Okay. So how did I construct my paper? First, well, the exposition, I guess, what I'm actually researching, and like information like to go, like that's important for the course of the paper, like how I've transliterated things and how I have put video game sources like into footnotes and at the end in the like sources collection. Translation means that you take like in the case of Russian, you have Cyrillic letters, and you, for people to be able to read it who can't read Cyrillic, you need to transliterate it into a like with Latin or like extended Latin letters. You'll see what I mean in a second. But yeah, it allows you to read it even if you can't read Cyrillic. Then I have 3 main big like bulks about Russian music in video games. The first one is music as a representation of Russia as a nation or as a military. Like I have the example Command and Conquer, Red Alert 3 with the Soviet March. Then I have the musical theme of a Russian figure. For that I have Mike Tyson's Punch Out with Soda Popinski and Katana Zero with V Limo. And as the third one I have music to feel yourself into a Russian-inspired setting. And for that I have Resident Evil Revelations 2 with the piece or song What Mchica Troika Почтовая, which Russian for see the Troika mail is rushing, I guess, is one semi-official translation. It's more like, yeah, see or there the Troika mail is, or the male Troika, as in like not male as in the gender, but male as in the like letter, is like exerting itself. Let's see, yes, training itself, kind of in that direction. But I guess the Troika mail is rushing is kind of a good enough translation. And I guess the end, and then I have a really long end section, which is like 10 pages long. The what's it called? The appendix, the attachment, where the meat of it is pretty much this table of Russian music in video games. Like I'm only discussing like 3 examples here, but there are way more. I have like almost 50. Like I think I have over 30. I've looked at over 50 games that hinted at having connections to Russia, but only over 30 had music that was like Russian or had Russian elements. So yeah, I have table of over 30 games with Russian or Russia-inspired music, which can be extended, of course, with even more examples. I only looked at about 50, 60 games, but there are more that have this a setting in Russia or were created in Russia. Okay, let's get to the beginning. Guess the intro. Let's see. I'm gonna skip non-important information, I guess. Like you wanna get the important meat of things, especially in a stream. And like otherwise, this video will take like forever if I were to translate it word by word. Let's see. Oh, I should actually, like I tweeted out that I am doing the thing. I should actually tag probably the composer that helped me a bit. Oh yeah, I should mention, before I actually started this paper, or before I decided making this paper, I was like, I wasn't sure if there are enough Russian pieces in video games. But I asked on Twitter, and they did have quite a few. So I did get quite a few recommendations from Twitter. By the way, have you tell the Peps that you're live streaming? Who? Peps? Who's that? Who's Peps? Need to actually tag the guy who composed for Katana Zero. Forgot what his name is. Bill Kiley. There we go. Sorry about this. Okay. So Peps Peoples. Yeah, I have tweeted it on Twitter, and I have mentioned it in the Discord updates channel. Okay. Oh, you meant Peeps. Yeah, I thought it was actually written Peeps, but today I learned it's just written like Peps, but pronounced Peeps. Okay. Tim, get well soon. Yeah, I don't know. I was like sick on Sunday and Monday, but I was really like non-sick on Tuesday all of a sudden. But now I think it's kind of getting back. Okay. So I guess so what I'm talking about here is if you want to think about think about Russian music and video games, you like have to ask yourself how they are used, which is pretty much the the goal of this paper, to lay out different ways of how Russian music was used in video games or music with Russian elements. And here comes the twist. Since you mentioned Tetris, actually, let me answer your thing. The music in games that I play normally are hardcore and lots of electronic music. Yeah, my next paper is on hardcore. So yeah, you might be interested in that. I'll probably next Sunday or so, I'll talk about hardcore. But okay. So most people will think of Tetris when they think of Russian music. But or like that's not a let me see, that's not a coincidence, because it was actually marketed as a Russian game. Like, from Russia with fun was like the slogan of Tetris. So, and it was created in Tetris, and then I guess imported, like, I think there was some history in Hungary, and then, like, in America, someone took the concept, and then Nintendo took the concept and made their own Tetrises, like, so Nintendo kind of owns Tetris now, or the license to it at least. But yeah, it originated in Russia. But Tetris isn't mentioned in this paper, except for the very end in this like table of like Russian like games with Russian music in it, because in this paper I'm talking about the or the contentious, or like yeah, the contentious, like the content of the game has to be Russian related as well, which isn't like really true in Tetris. Like, Tetris is just no, a game which came from Russia, but it doesn't have, like, well, the later games did have Russian imagery. Oh, hey Patrick, what's up? The later games did have Russian imagery, the ones by Nintendo especially, or I think there was a 10. I forgot the ones who made Tetris before Nintendo took the license. But in itself, Tetris isn't inherently doesn't inherently have Russian content, except like later on when it gained them. So there are many very tired, so I'm gonna talk as much as usual. No problem, Patrick. I'm just happy that you're here and listening. There are many cases in which Russian music is, or music of Russian elements is used without any, like, contextual reason within the game. But, like, the game doesn't have anything Russian about it at all, and it's still used in there for no reason. Or, like, it does have a reason, but it isn't because the music is Russian that is used in the game. Like, it could be made in Russia, like in the case of Tetris. So, like, the guy knew Kolobeniki. He was like, okay, I'm gonna steal that and make it the Tetris theme. Or, like, well, it made sense to hire Russian singers. So that meant that they have Russian lyrics in their songs within the game, or Russian instrumentalists. So it's easier to get accordion players, or balalaika players, or domra players, or rozhok players even. Like, a rozhok is a wooden trumpet, a Russian wooden trumpet. Hi Kevin, what's up? And in other cases, it's just a, like, famous piece from the classical or romantic era, and it fit the scene, even though it doesn't have anything to do with Russia. Like in Bioshock, for example, there's like a Russian piece by Shostakovich, which doesn't have anything to do with the with whatever's happening on the screen at that moment. It's just, like, sophisticated because it's playing during the Kochen, or however his name is pronounced, section of the game of Bioshock 1, and he doesn't really, like, there isn't anything inherently Russian about that scene. It's just that they wanted to have some classical music. I might be misremembering. Maybe it wasn't Cohen. I mean, maybe it wasn't a piece by Shostakovich, but it was a piece by a Russian composer. Yeah, and they could be marketed as a Russian game, like in the case of Tetris as well. So yeah, I won't talk about those cases in detail. Instead, I'll talk about music as a representation of Russia as a nation, or as the Russian, like, as a representation for the Russian military, or military might, as a musical theme of a Russian figure or character. My boy Shosti, yeah. Actually, gonna look it up in a second, if it was Shostakovich. and music to feel yourself into a Russian setting. Not kochen, as in German, but kochen. I'm gonna scroll to that part in a bit. So yeah, and then you can, of course, translate all these findings to papers or to research about like the music from a country in other video games, like, I don't know, Turkish music in video games, or Chinese music in video games, Japanese music in video games. But as soon as you've like pinpointed what is like what Russia does, like how people or game developers use Russian music in video games, you can then compare them to the usage of, like, for example, Japanese music in video games. I have analyzed the music from 50 video games that had something to do with Russia, or had like Russian music in it. And over 30 of those did have Russian music or music with Russian characteristica, which are then found at the end of this paper. Okay, let me scroll to my boy Shostakovich now. If it was Shostakovich. Bioshock. Let's see. Bioshock. It was Waltz of the Flowers by Tchaikovsky, not Shostakovich, sorry. It was Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky. Waltz of the Flowers. Okay. So yeah, transliteration. I'm gonna show you the transliteration table in a bit, but yeah, Tchaikovsky's Waltz of the Flowers. You're right. So this is how I like there isn't a concise method of putting video games as a source into your footnotes, especially not in Germany. Like, there are some models in America, but like MIT, was it MIT? Oh well, there are like 3, I think, that I've heard of, but they aren't really convincing. So yeah, I made up my own. That's okay for this paper. It's not really too in-depth. I will actually probably write my bachelor paper on how these things, like how video games can be used as sources and how to solve these problems. But yeah, in this case, I just made up a really simple one. We have the studio, the publisher, like the studio who made it, then the publisher who published it, the name of the game in cursive, as is normal for books, where the book title is in cursive, then where it was released and the year it was like with the place. I mean the platform, like the PS3 Switch, since there might be differences between platforms within the music, and the year, of course, of the release. And if I'm mentioning a series, it's the production studio, the publisher, the name of the series, for example, Pokemon, and then the name of the series, and then the like suffix serie or series in English, so that people know that I am talking about a series in this case. Like, if I want to talk about the whole Pokemon series, I will just put Pokemon in here and say serie, so that people know that I'm talking about a series and not a specific game, which I do a bit in this paper. And about video game music, I use the composer's last name, composer's first name, the title of the video game track, and where it is used, along with the year, the like place where, on which console I heard it, and the year. And the title, well, this one can be odd. Like, sometimes you have a song list or like a audio test in a video game. In many you don't. So in those cases, I refer to the CD releases to get the title, but I usually listen to the pieces in game. Like, especially in the case of Resident Evil 2, Revelations 2, where there wasn't even a CD out with that piece on it. Like, all the CDs, even the extended versions, didn't have that piece that I was researching. So yeah. let's look at the transliteration table, if I can find it. There we go. So this is the one that we use in Slavistics, like Russian or Cyrillic B is transformed into a like Latin B, or you have for ch, you have the C with this thingy on top of it, like this arrowhead pointing at it, or sh, or sh, or a, that kind of stuff, you, ya. So yeah, that way my professor or my docent, not sure to pronounce it, lecturer, I guess, won't have to actually learn how to read Cyrillic to understand what I'm writing in there. Okay. So the first thing, I looked to see if there were any Shosti pieces in games, and I found the Gadfly suit was used in Little Big Planet 2. I will actually note that. Dude, thanks a lot. Because I'm actually thinking of releasing the thing officially, the list. Okay, there we go. Releasing my list publicly, translated to English, because like I don't feel like translating the whole paper because it's not as useful to people as, for example, the Artcore paper next year. So yeah. Okay, so what is interesting about Russian music and video games, which I noticed first when I researched Russian music, was that there are a lot of video games which have Russian music or Russian sounding music with military content, like in this case Command & Conquer. There are a lot more, like Call of Duty has a bit. There's Civilization. Let's see. There's Company of Heroes, Hearts of Iron, kind of Metal Gear Solid, maybe. Well, didn't really fit into that category because Russia isn't really shown as a country. In this case, Snake, an American soldier, is in Russia, but kind of. Maybe this one? Nah, not really. Red Orchestra 2. So yeah, there are a lot. War Thunder, Origin Conflict, World of Tanks. So there are a lot, like at least a third of all the examples I have in that list are from video games with military content. So yeah, this is Command & Conquer Red Alert 2, which was released on 28th of October 2008 for Windows. And then later on it was ported to Mac, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. And the Soviet Union is almost losing the war, but they have a time machine, so they like go back in time, kill Einstein, so that they don't have like atom weapons, I guess. And then they go back to the present and are like, oh nice, America isn't about to defeat us anymore. But then Japan comes in, so they changed the future in a way that's made it like so that America isn't a threat anymore, but Japan is, and America is still there. Like it's still a thing, but it isn't like an immediate threat. So you have this like fantasy setting of these three powers: Russia, Japan, and America. And yeah. And even before you start the game, you can see that it's Russian inspired here. Like, look here, it's like a red cover. It has the, you can't really see it well here. Here you can see the hammer and sickle. You can see bears with Okay, yeah, I was talking to myself. Nice. Okay. But I didn't say anything about the paper anyway, so I was just copying the things that Patrick said to the spreadsheet about Russian music and video games. Okay. Let's see, where have we left off? I think I was talking about the, like, what's Russian in this cover? Like the red color, which stands for communism. This hammer and sickle, the bear, like the stereotypical Russian bear. Yeah, we are back. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's mostly it. The one on the front cover is Natasha Volkova, as she's called in game, the one who's actually, like, I think she's actually American. She's an UFC fighter. Actually, I'm not sure if she's American. I didn't actually write down here what her nationality is. But yeah, she represents the Russian side. And she's featured in a few cutscenes as well. So yeah, let's get to the Soviet March. And for that, we need to listen to the Soviet March. And this means that this video is going to get ultra demonetized. But that's alright. Oof, 4 minutes. Sorry, I'm lowering the volume to -9 decibel. Okay, I think we can end it here. So you kind of get the gist. I guess it, in my opinion, does have a Russian feel to it. But why? But why? That's the question. Okay, I'm mainly, or like this is the main example of this section of Russia, like a music representing Russia as a nation or military might. It was used, like it's a really important piece for this game. It was used for advertisement during the trailer. Actually, I kind of might need to show the trailer as well. I saw Moscow in the suggestion. Oops. Not the intro. Please, give me the trailer. No, please. What the hell? Okay. The trailer disappeared. So I guess that's the thing about about stuff on YouTube. Let me look into it in my sources. This is the UFC fighter Gina Carano. See, where's the trailer? Number 6. There's the trailer. Maybe it's been taken down. Not sure. Oh, it's not listed anymore. Okay, that's interesting. Like, there, you have the hammer and sickle already behind the EA logo. That's why I should download the video before it's gone for no reason. You are totally correct. But okay. Maybe I should definitely keep that in mind for the Artcore paper. This isn't the trailer that I meant, but there are other trailers that use the actual Soviet march music. Or maybe it's at the end. No. Okay, this one used the Hell March. But yeah, you can see the Russian imagery here as well, with like how it's first written Cyrillian and then it switches to Latin letters. Pokarai mir, conquer the world. Or like, it's even Russian and then it translates into English. And here, the release date is stated as right October 2008, which is the Russian, like, there was like a revolution, kind of, I believe. So yeah, kind of sad that they unlisted it, kind of weird too, but okay. Yeah, it was the October Revolution. Okay, Soviet March. So it is a march, meaning it has an umpa rhythm. Umpa meaning like bass chord. Like an accordion. You know how accordions sound, probably. Let's see if I can. Like pa pa. In this case, it's in a 4x4 meter. So pa, just really fast. Which is typical for a march. The instrumentation mainly focuses on brass instruments, percussions, and you can hear these like marching sounds. And at the very beginning of the piece, you can hear a cannonball shot or a cannon shot. So yeah, it does have a militant kind of feel, definitely, to it. And I have actually written to the composer. Like, well, at first I wrote to the audio director, but the audio director didn't reply, so I wrote to the composer, and he was like he told me about the piece, and he told me that he wanted to create a parody of the Soviet era march. He didn't quite explain what he meant with that, but it is evident that he wanted the piece to kind of feel Russian. Nick Laviers, the audio director, made a blog with the or blog post with the name Soviet March Lyrics Mystery Revealed. Since the Russian lyrics are definitely a big like part of why this sounds Russian, because you can hear a Russian choir singing, and he mentioned that it was inspired by a Russian or by a male Cossacks corps or choir. So maybe they meant the Don Cossacks choir Sergei Yarov, or they meant the maybe the like Red choir, which is also a really well-known Russian choir. But yeah, the choir itself that they used for the recording wasn't Russian. It was an American choir from San Francisco, which did sing Russian as well, though, and they had a translator with them as well, who told them how to pronounce things. Okay. Do you know any marches in triple meter or partly in triple meter? Seems like an interesting idea to me. I really don't. Because the thing is, March triple meter doesn't really make sense. They might be some, maybe, but they weren't. They're more experimental in that case, because a march is usually in double meter, like either 2x4 or 4x4. Rip my voice. Because you need to be able to walk to it, meaning you have 2 feet, so you need a meter that's dividable by 2. So a triple meter doesn't really make sense unless you have 3 feet. And the triple meter is associated with dancing, so because of waltzes. And yeah, so historically, I'd say no one ever consciously made probably marches in triple meter, because it didn't really make sense. But there might be some, maybe, because someone said like, okay, I want to make a piece in triple meter that does sound like a march, which isn't used in a military setting, because it can't be used in a military setting because of the meter, because it's uneven. But like, it's just there as a concert piece. So yeah, that's my take on it. Okay. So yeah, as I said, a big Russian element is the song text. There were a lot of theories about what the song text actually was, which is why Nick Laviers wrote the blog post Soviet March Lyrics Mystery Revealed. And here's the like Russian thing. Like they wrote it in English first, and then someone translated it into Russian. I think the father of a colleague translated it into Russian. Here, our Soviet Union subjugates the whole world like a gigantic bear from the east. The sheep wander aimlessly without any cost, yet the Soviet bears on the hunt. Our brotherhood is a good life, our generosity is without compare. All those with us are strong, all those against us beware. Ooh, it actually rhymed. It'd be a shame if we had hardships. To all those around us, it's not worth your while. If we were to turn you to ashes, we thank you profoundly and bow to you deeply from the mightiest nation in all the world. I like experimental stuff to a certain extent. Yeah, same here. I mean, it can be really weird, but if it's like really weird experimental stuff, then I kind of like it as for its like entertaining value, I guess, because it's funny most of the time. Like when the musicians play on a piece of cardboard and then proceed to eat a wrap of plastic on stage, like as a musical act. It's kind of a bit weird, but also funny. Okay. So, but the problem is that the text here doesn't correspond to the text in the actual song, in the actual piece. Yeah, in the actual song, not piece. There was one blog post on a Russian site, which is kind of a mix of social media and blog. And someone wrote as a comment that the Command & Conquer website actually had different lyrics, which were these here. But I couldn't find them anymore. Like, the site is already down. EA has a new site. So yeah, I have translated it to German. You don't really... Well, maybe... Yeah, Okay, yeah. It does have quite a few differences. Like, over here, it says, yet the Soviet bears on the hunt. Over here, it's capital, vodka, Soviet bear. Like, you probably know those lyrics as well. as the like ones that everyone who makes covers of this piece uses. Like two big ones are let's see, the one like Richard E.B. made one, a metal cover, and used exactly those lyrics. And there's the one by Alina Gingertail, which does a lot of Slavic music covers. And yeah, she used these lyrics here. Like if you listen to the piece and try to read along, you will notice that like this middle part doesn't even exist, for example. And each part is like looped twice. So I asked the composer what's up with that, and he was like, okay, they probably, like, he composed a piece like this, but then the audio director split it up a bit and like rearranged it and put some parts there, probably removed the middle part. So the outcome of that is that it's very likely that these, in quotation marks, official lyrics that were apparently on the Command & Conquer website aren't actually the real lyrics. Like if you Google for Command & Conquer Soviet March lyrics, or if you listen to the lyrics of the covers of the piece, you will find that they're all this and not the ones from the blog post. And these are technically the wrong lyrics, technically, unless for some reason Nick Lavier's lied. But I don't think he did. So yeah, these lyrics are actually the real ones. You just have to ignore this middle part. And then you get the real lyrics. So they aren't actually singing about like vodka. Like vodka isn't even mentioned here. Someone just listened to it and was like, oh yeah, that kind of sounds like vodka, and vodka is Russian, so it's gotta be the real lyrics. So yeah, now you know. So if you want to make a cover of that piece or of that song, now you know that you need to use these lyrics from Nick Lavier's and not the ones that are in quotation marks the officials or the widely used ones. Okay, all in all, to summarize it, Russia can be like the nation Russia, or in this case, the militant might of Russia can be actually shown or made audible with a march with Russian song text. There are quite a lot of games who did the same, like Red Orchestra 2, Heroes of Stalingrad, or Company of Heroes 2, to name two examples. Actually, let me show them to you, because it is actually kind of interesting to hear. They all have Russian lyrics as well. Let's see. Storm clouds over Stalingrad. So yeah, Russian lyrics, or for example, March into Hell from Company of Heroes 2. Mother 3 has Russian music as well. Oh man. Okay, that's awesome. I didn't know that. Okay, Man, you're like a fountain of Russian music from video games. Like, holy moly. Okay, if you remember any more, definitely let me know. I will have to add them to my spreadsheet. um, Actually, one exception of that, or oh no, wait. Um, Male cores are usually a big part of these like games or pieces or songs, in this case with Russian music. Like they might be inspired by the Alexandrov ensemble, which is also known as the Red Choir, or the Don Cossacks choir Sergei Yalov, which are like two of the biggest like stereotypically Russian choirs. And the military is usually like linked to like men, not really women, which is why like they usually use a male core. Like you can imagine like the men like sitting together and singing something like this, like in company before they have to go out and shoot people, I guess. Which isn't true, of course. Like there are women in the military, but it's like a stereotype that the military is, well, it is male dominated, but it is a stereotype that there are no women in military, which isn't true. Actually in Red Orchestra 2, Heroes of Stalingrad, there's the piece So Far From Home, which has a German male core, actually. So yeah, it's more linked to it being a piece for a military game that it uses male choirs, even though I said in my video on Russian songs, how to compose Russian songs, that male choirs are usually linked as a stereotypical Russian thing, because like low voices in general, because of things like octavism and yeah, all of that. People connect male choirs, or can connect male choirs to Russia. But yeah, in this case, it's mostly because of the militant feeling. There's an exception, Civilization, which uses Russian folk and art music, actually. So, like most of the pieces, like the ones I mentioned here, all of them, as well as a few others, all have in common that they're either first-person shooters or real-time strategy games. So yeah, these games do present a conflict between multiple nations. And if a game developer is like, okay, I want one of these nations to be Russian, then it makes sense to use Russia-inspired music as a theme song for them, like the Soviet March, or March into Hell, or Storm Clouds over Stalingrad. But yeah, there are other contexts too, like this militant image of Russia. Some people are like, oh, suddenly dropped to 0 viewers. Oh boy. Like militant kind of march kind of music being used in other contexts, like in the Zola Popinski theme in Punch Out on the Wii, like, which also has a march and male choir. Let me drink something real quick. Okay. And that's that for how Russian music is used to present Russia as a nation or as a militant power or military power. Okay, let's move on to the next point. What's 0 viewers? I'm still here with Patrick. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It dropped to 0 viewers, then it went back to 2, then went back to 1, now it's back to 2. Kind of weird. Okay, maybe it's just glitching. Okay, the musical theme of a Russian character. So yeah, if there's like a character in a game that's obviously Russian, it makes sense to amplify that feeling that that person is Russian, or that it can be an antagonist too, or a protagonist, that this person is Russian, because for Goes in the snow, hits me in the fields. I have to check it out later. It sounds pretty cool. Okay, there oof, I lost my string, my red string. What was it talking about? Oh yeah, maybe this character being Russian is like an inherent trait that justifies its their actions. Like, I don't know, there's the stereotype of the Russian that's drinking a lot, for example. So you can have like a figure and he's like Russian, and you're like, okay, he's also getting Russian figures and he's like a Russian stereotype and stuff. So people are like, oh yeah, he drinks a lot, so yeah, and it makes sense that he has Russian music, for example, even if it's like a kind of malicious stereotype, or I don't know, yeah, stuff like that, or like, I guess I'm going to get to that in my summary of this section. Okay, but the main game I have as an example here is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, which was later renamed to just Punch-Out because they couldn't use Mike Tyson's name anymore after a while because they lost the license. You probably know Punch-Out. I can probably show you what's up with Punch-Out. There you go. That's Punch-Out. It was released in 1987 in Japan and in, the same year in Europe. I didn't look up when it was released in America because this is a German paper, so it's more Europe focused, I guess. You're playing Little Mac. He's a boxer, and you have to fight against different boxers from different countries, and you have to win you have to win 3 tournaments, and at the very end you can fight against Mike Tyson. And one of the fighters, like I said, the boxers are from different countries that kind of represent the countries. One of the boxers is from Moscow. His name is Soda Popunsky. There's actually the game Super Punch-Out, which was an arcade game, I believe, yeah, which was released 2 years prior. And that character was there as well, but he was called Vodka Drunkensky. So this kind of amplifies this, like, okay, this is stereotypically a Russian character. Like you have Vodka in here and Drunkensky as in drunk. So yeah. And the piece that I'm talking about is Soda Popinski's intro. It's really short, just 8 seconds. So yeah. There you go. That's it. That's his intro theme. And after this, this intro theme plays when he enters the ring. And then after that, after it's over, the actual fighting theme starts, which is the same for every character. So yeah. There are usually these intro themes for each fighter are usually quotes from actual folk pieces from those countries or from art pieces from those countries. And this one is Bolakaya, which is also known under the name Ey Uchnem. In German, it's known as Lied der Wolgaschlepper, and in English, it's also called The Song of the Volga Boatman. Let's listen to The Song of the Volga Boatman. Yeah, guess the Red Army Choir. I want to find the good part where the whole choir starts singing. Actually, it's not that clear. It's a bit quiet, but yeah, you can probably hear that it's actually this piece. Da 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 da. So yeah, it is a Russian folk song, which Mili Alexeyevich Balakirev found. Like, he didn't compose it. He just found it, and he like wrote it down, and he published it in his folk song collection Sbornik Ruskich Narodnych Pesien, which is like pretty much that. It's a folk collection of Russian folk pieces or folk songs. It was a Russian work song, also called a Pripyavka, and its name Bulakaya, like its original name Bulakaya, not a Yuchnem or Song of the Volga Boatman. Actually, Song of the Volga Boatman kind of fits it. Was inspired by let me actually get the picture out. Like, there's actually a picture here on Wikipedia. There you go. So these are like Bulakaya. Like, these people, they had to pull these ships along the coast or like along rivers. And yeah, that's how they made their money. Usually in movies or in series, it is used like when something has to do with Russian stereotypes, like in The Simpsons, where like Homer, let's see if I can, I can't find it actually. Or maybe, let me just see if I can find it on here. No, doesn't look like I can. But yeah, there was one scene where Homer like blew into this like thingy that measures how drunk you are, and then it's like hits the very top, and then you can hear like a small melody of Bulakaya playing because he's drunk, because of the stereotype of the drunk Russian, or like the Russian that drinks a lot, or there's like, let's see, Lot of War with Nicolas Cage, I believe. Yeah, Lot of War, and they like look at weapons, and that's, you can kind of faintly hear the theme in the background of Bulakaya because of the like stereotype of the militant Russia. So yeah, or it is also often used when characters have to do some heavy work, like in SpongeBob. It's like one scene where the characters like move the town, like the whole town out of the way, because there's like this huge worm coming that might destroy their town. So they like move the whole town, and during that part you can hear Bulakaya playing. So I have compared these, like the arrangement in Mike Tyson's Punch Out and the arrangement from Balakirev. Like, Balakirev didn't like notate just the melody, he actually notated chords as well, even though he probably only had the melody, which like I don't have sources for that. Like he was the one who found it first, but when he notated it, he made like piano sheets. So yeah, he changed it pretty much, kind of. He probably only had the melody. He only kept the melody. Okay, but yeah, in Punch-Out you can only hear first 8 bars from Bulakaya. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is like 150 BPM, so it's way faster, while the original is usually like around 70 BPM, which is what like the Red Choir, the speed at which the Red Choir sings it, because it actually has an umerino, like it says umerino at the very beginning of the sheets by Balakirev, which means like dying, or I guess in the musical sense it just means slow. And the scale is different as well. In Punch-Out you have C Lydian, and in the original you have B Phrygian. But the first part pretty much just sounds like a B minor, B minor, because you can't actually hear a C flat, which is like the main note for B Phrygian. But yeah, it's pretty much B minor versus C Lydian. Like C Lydian is kind of majorish. It has a major color to it, while on the other hand, in the original you have a B minor. So you have major instead of minor, kind of like to really simplify it. Like Lydian isn't the same as major, but it has a major feel or sound to it. And harmonically, it's not quite the same as well. Like it goes back and forth from the first first step, like the first Roman numeral, back and forth. Like you have B flat, E flat, B flat. Okay, it's in B flat Phrygian. I always forget to add that. Like I always forget that B is in America is something different than B in Germany. But yeah, it's B flat minor or B Phrygian, B flat Phrygian. So you have the first, then the fourth, then the first chord, first, fourth, first, and so on. And here is you have the first, fifth, first, first, fifth, first. So you have you go away from the first, like chord, like the first Roman numeral chord, and then go back to it. So that's one of the things that it has in common, aside from the melody. Which does differ as well though, because this part isn't in the original melody. You have this part which goes up, da, 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 and this one you have dum 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 dum. So yeah, and the bass goes pretty ham as well. So yeah, all in all, you have a faster tempo, you have a more major kind of sound, and you have like the bass doing a lot of stuff. Like over here, the bass is pretty simple. Over here, you have 16th. You have like a chromatic descension over here. It does quite a lot, and all of that together kind of makes it feel more exciting, I guess. Like it's like the excitement before a fight. Okay, let's go to the next character. This guy, V from Katana Zero. So yeah, you might have heard of Katana Zero. If not, have some gameplay. It's an awesome indie game. Can recommend. That's a review, but you can see some gameplay. Oops. Yeah, you go around killing people, and you can rewind the level, like back to the beginning. Like you have only one life. Like if you get hit once, you're out. And it gets pretty trippy as well, and pretty meta. So it's really awesome in my opinion. Oops. And yeah, you're playing the samurai. Let's skip the story. You don't need to know it for this paper. The most important character, New Donk Shitty. It actually flagged your comment because you had shit in it, but yeah, I proved it. Yep, it's New Donk Shitty. That's the subtitle. I'll actually talk about the story of this title in a bit as well. Like the composer actually told me about it. So yeah, here is V. He is Russian, and he's an antagonist. Like at first he wants to recruit Zero because he's like, oh, Zero, he's like a murderer. He probably does it out of fun, just like me. Like he makes snuff films, which are like, yeah, gory stuff. And yeah, but Zero is like, nah. Like he just gets these from his psychiatrist. Actually, not sure if I remember why he does it, but he doesn't do it because it's fun for him to kill. Like he feels kind of indifferent about it from like what I've seen. V on the other hand enjoys killing. Like he even suggests, okay, let's take these two, who he's like, he totally drugged them. He's like, okay, let's take these two to my studio and then we will make a snuff film. So yeah, it's a bit brutal. Not just a bit, it's quite brutal. So yeah, but Zero, like the main character here, Zero is like, no, you are sick. I want to have anything to do with you. So V just throws him out of the limo that they're sitting in, and Zero follows him to the Studio 51. And during that limo ride is when you hear V limo, kind of obvious, with the subtitle New Donk Shitty. Oh boy, what's up with my throat? I gotta drink a lot, it seems. Can definitely recommend Katana Zero. It's great. So yeah, he's described as the Russian. He actually talks Russian too, actually in Kyrillian letters, like here, Nyat Blyat, which just means no, and Blyat is like a swear-filled word, kind of like shit, pretty much in American English. Like no shit, we're cut from the same cloth is kind of the like really rough translation. Like Blyat doesn't really have a direct translation. Or he says suka huyat, which is another swear word combination. So yeah, and during that ride you can hear, here it comes, hard bass. That's right. I've snuggled memes into my paper. Well, I mean, hard bass is a normal genre kind of, but it is also kind of memey. So yeah. CSGO flashbacks, yeah, same with Dota. So yeah, and others call him the Russian too, or say that he is Russian. Like here's a quote from someone who wrote into the comment section of his wiki page. He's definitely Russian. Not only does he speak in Russian swear words, this limo you can hear Russian hard bass playing. And the composer himself, like I wrote to the composer, Bill. What's his last name? Kiley. Bill Kiley, yeah. Like I wrote an email to Bill Kiley, and he was like, "Yep, we did that." Oh yeah, the one who made it, Justin Stander, like with him together, were like, yeah, it would make sense for V to like hard bass, which is why hard bass is playing in his limo while they're riding in it. Okay, and New Donk Shitty. So how did the name come to be? If I remember correctly, Bill Kiley was like, he only made it as a meme. It's a like reference to New Donk City from Mario Odyssey. But he was like it wasn't intended to be the official name, but it became the official name. And he was like, okay, hopefully Nintendo doesn't sue me. yeah. There's a pretty interesting story behind that name. Is there a soft bass? No, not as far as I know, but you might as well invent soft bass. There's softball, the sport. Let's see. Soft bass. There are songs that are called soft bass. There's a hashtag soft bass. What? The fuck? Okay. It's not a common genre. I can say that at least. Soft must be like non-hard bass music. Why did it? Like it did. Why the hell did it flag that message? Okay. Anyhow. It like okay. One thing that you might think is like, why is this under the character theme section? Like this isn't like his character theme. It's the theme of that plays in his limo ride. But it is kind of his character theme. He does have his own theme, but V Limo is kind of also his character theme, because this is the first time that V and Zero actually talk to each other. Like it's one of the most important scenes for this character, pretty much. It's like his introduction, and his like exposition kind of leads to his end too, or like closer to his end. So yeah. Researching the history of hard bass was a bit hard, as the name says. If it was soft bass, then maybe the research would have been soft. Who knows? Like it's a kind of like there aren't many scientific sources on hard bass. Like this is maybe the only one where hard bass is actually mentioned. Like a really actual scientific source, like a paper. So, but I did have some sources. Hard bass originates from Pumping House, but as Pumping House lost popularity, the music group Hard Bass School, also known as Szkoła Tańców Hardbassa, which pretty much directly translates to hard bass school of dance, kind of, or hard bass dance school. But hard bass school is their like official English name. They decided to keep Pumping House alive with some minor changes. Like they wanted for Pumping House to survive, so they made hard bass. In May of 2010, a YouTube video was released, which had the song Szkoła Kolbasy, which is Russian for school of sausages, pretty much, or sausage school. Sausage school is the best translation. And there were like guys who made a parody. See, parodied. Yeah, I guess they made a parody of the rave culture, rave dance culture, and others started making similar videos. Like these people just like danced everywhere, like in different parts, and were like, yeah, pretty much made a meme out of it. And yeah, others did the same. And that's how it actually gained in popularity, because it kind of became viral. Actually, just noticed I never showed you V Limo. I need to show you the piece before I talk about it. Yeah, that's hard bass. Okay, Alfred, now listen to your heart. Why is it hard bass? Why do you think that this is hard bass? Like, what elements made you think that this is hard bass? That's the question. For those that have never heard hard bass before, here's like one of the best ways to show you what hard bass is. Actually, might as well show you the video that started it all. 44. There we go.
Wann gab es zuletzt,
No.
dass Sie zu Tränen...
So this video kind of made hard bass actually a widely regarded genre, as in like more people knew about it after this video than after the many other videos.
Здравствуйте, это вновь школа Хардбаса. Мы на родине Хардбаса в городе Санкт-Петербург. И как ни странно, многие жители не умеют танцевать Хардбас, несмотря на то, что этот удар у них в крови. И вот мы здесь, чтобы исправить эту ситуацию.
So they're like, here we are, and many don't know how to dance to hard bass, so we're gonna show them how to dance to hard bass.
И Хардбас из региона.
Это школа колбасы, веселее, пацаны. Раз, это хардбас, все спортивку хай-дидас. И на найке, пацаны, слушаем хардбас-басы. Этот стайл любим мы, жгем все в ритме колбасы. 150 ударов тут, пацаны, спортивка жгут. Школа танцев учит вас, правильно писать хардбас. В клубе до утра топтать и ничего не принимать. Будь рад из беды, наши злейшие враги. На площадках мы под хваст, отожгем для вас хардбас. Бас, бас, хардбас, бас, бас, хардбас, бас, бас, хардбас. Отожгем для вас хардбас. Бас, бас, хардбас, бас, бас, хардбас, бас, бас, хардбас. Отожгем для вас хардбас. Бас, бас, хардбас, бас, бас, хардбас.
And so on. Okay, others parodied this. You can see over here, people made like flash mobs of them dancing to hard bass music, and it became less and less ironic and kind of actually became kind of a serious thing, more or less. But yeah, that was hard bass. There are also like videos by Boris. You might know Boris. He makes videos about Slavic culture, pretty much, in a like comical way. If it loads it up, dang it. Okay, let me just copy this. What? I can actually let's read it out loud.
10 unterhalten und sie etabliert die Beziehung zwischen ihnen.
Nice. Okay, let me copy paste this. Dang it. The fuck? Okay, there we go. Life of Boris. There he is. You might know him. He has quite a few hard bass videos, which have multiple millions of, like 17 million. The 3.1 million. Cheeky Blicky, Kopnik Dance, which probably features hard bass music as well. There, Intense Hard Bass, 3.9 million views. So yeah. Oh dang it. What happened? Okay. So what makes hard bass hard bass? It's mainly the faster tempo, usually between 140 and 160 beats per minute. A 4 to the floor rhythm. Why is there space here? Okay. Russian rap, and most importantly, in my opinion, the donk, which is a percussive synthetic bass stab, which is usually used for the melody. Like it was actually popularized, like the sample, because of the song "Put a Donk on It." Like you will actually hear it in there. Like in the guys who made hard bass were like, yep, that sounds cool. We want to use this.
That's good. Slide. Yeah, that's sick. That is... You want to put a banging donk on it. Yeah, that's sick. That is sick. I can definitely drop to that one. All we need now is like a hook line. You know what? I've got actually.
Yeah. Not dong, but donk. True. Actually, now maybe the name of the piece makes more sense. New donk shitty. Because of the donk. Okay. V-Limo isn't like a totally 100% stereotypical hard bass track, but it has a lot of important elements that are typical for hard bass. It is a bit faster with 170 BPM, but it has the donk and the 4 to the floor rhythm. And the composer also said that they wanted to make an emphatic sounding donk, and he also got a lot of feedback from Russian colleagues who listened to it and told him like how to get closer to hard bass, to the genre. He wanted to actually include Russian samples, like voice samples, but he couldn't really find any good ones, so he just took one that was whatever. It might have been like you can hear a voice at the very beginning. I think it might be English or something. At one point he also wanted to incorporate Russian opera singing, but it didn't really fit. I really wonder how it would have sounded like with Russian opera singing. Okay, time to sum it up. It is not untypical to use Russian or Russia-inspired music for Russian characters. It's Hayden's there like memory. What's it called? Memorability. Holy moly! It Hayden's their memorability, and their and recognition value. There we go, memorability and recognition value. Like in the case of Street Fighter and Punch-Out. Like in the case of Street Fighter, you have Zangief, who's from Russia, or Punch-Out, you have Soda Popinski. And then there are other fighting games where you have Russian characters. And in these games, each character has their own nationality, so they kind of represent their country. So they are kind of stereotypical, but also oftentimes feature Russian music somehow in some way, or have like Russian instruments in them. Not always. I've looked through Tekken and I'm not sure. Maybe King of Fighters too. Like I checked another fighting game series, but the themes of those Russian characters didn't really have any Russian elements. But in the case of Punch-Out and Street Fighter, they did have them. In the case of Street Fighter, it was mainly the ending theme, not the character theme, that sounded Russian. Unfathomable. Let me look up. What's it mean? Unergründlich. Unfathomable. Oh boy. So in the case of Katana Zero, the character is pretty much based around his national identity. Like you can see how you could see how he's using Russian swear words, how he switches to Russian, how Cyrillian letters are used in the game whenever when he talks in Russian. And Bill Kiley also wrote me that they did it to give it more word color, to give the game more word color. The words are too sophisticated. It isn't sophisticated kind of a sophisticated word? Okay, but yeah, they wanted to give the character or the game more word color, by having the V have hard bass, or be into a hard bass. So yeah, you can therefore also express their identity, the identity of these Russian characters through the music, like making sure that the one who's playing the game really knows, okay, this is totally a Russian character, and to amplify the effects, the effects of this character feeling Russian. I feel like I just got flexed on. Unfathomable. I suck at my English isn't that great, but like it's good enough. I guess I'm not good at talking in English because I'm not used to it. I'm good at reading, writing, and hearing English, but yeah, for some reason I got unfathomable right. So yeah, you gotta step up your unfathomable pronunciation game. Let's get to the last point, like the last point before the Fazit. Actually, cut Fazit before the conclusion or the results. There we go. So, music. Actually, my docent, my lecturer, actually told me that this is a really awkward title. Like, he didn't, I don't think he deducted anything. But he was like, dude, that sounds really awkward. But other than that, there weren't really any big points that I thought were negative. Unfathomable. So yeah, music to feel yourself into a Russian setting. I guess is pretty much the translation of this part. So yeah, it can happen that in a game you are in a Russian setting, or in a setting that's inspired by Russia. I think there's this one game, what's it called? Alots Online, right? It does actually have Russian inspired settings. Like, it's an online game that's kind of like it's an MMO. Personally, it reminded me of World of Warcraft, but I didn't really play Alots Online ever. Like, I only saw a few like trailers or like a bit of gameplay. But yeah, in that case, it's a fantasy world, but it has Russian elements, like Russian looking buildings and stuff, or Russian. Maybe it even has Russian, like traditional Russian clothes and stuff, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it is easier to feel yourself into it as a player. Like, to consciously be like, okay, this is a Russian setting if you hear Russian sounding music. And as a prime example, I have Resident Evil Revelations 2. There's actually another one which was played in like the subways below Russia, which had which was kind of like Fallout. It has a lot of Russian older music, like, you know how Fallout has like music from the 20s to 60s and stuff, like jazz and all that good stuff that sounds like it's from records, from vinyl records, old vinyl records, with like lots of dust. And there's a similar game that's playing in like the Russian subway system, I believe. And it has like old Russian music from around like an earlier time period, which was pretty interesting. But yeah, I didn't choose that. I chose Resident Evil Revelations 2 instead, because I thought that one was a bit more interesting even. I didn't want to like analyze all of these pieces that were in that one game, because there were a lot of Russian pieces in that other game, like the one with the Russian subway. Okay, Resident Evil Revelations 2. No subways. Most people probably already know Resident Evil. It's a horror survival game. This is a spin-off, the second part of the Revelations 2, of the Revelations series, or the Revelations spin-off series. It has multiple episodes, think it is Finf. I'm not totally sure. Well, there's a couple of episodes. It was released in 2015. I played the Switch version, which was released 2017. It has two protagonists, pretty much. No, it has four protagonists. There are two sides. Like you switch between two character groups, pretty much. You have Claire Redfield and Moira Burton, who's the daughter of Barry Burton. You might know him if you're a Resident Evil fan, as I am. And Claire Redfield, of course, a common name in the Resident Evil universe, or a well-known name. So they're like working with TerraSafe, which is like anti-bioterror, an anti-bioterror organization. And Moira just recently joined them, but they get like invaded. Like there's some people are like, and you mess up Revelations. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Oh boy. Okay. Revelations. Unfathomable. Sophisticated. Okay. But yeah, the building gets stormed and they are like abducted to an island called Shusestvovanie Island, which is in the Baltic Sea. It isn't an actual island. It's like a fake island, like they made it up. And Shusestvovanie is Russian for existence, pretty much. It also has a different name for some reason. I have no idea why it has two names, and I don't remember the second name. But yeah. Yeah, Shusestvovanie pretty much means existence or being. Being. Okay. So yeah, that's the first group, and then like 6 months later, Barry Burton comes to the island to find his daughter. Like he tracked the signal that Moira Burton sent from the tower, from the radio tower, which reached him way too late, unfortunately for him, like for his tastes, like 6 months later after her disappearance. And there he meets a small girl called Natalia Korda, who was being experimented on, but she like fled and stuff. And she has like powers to feel the mutants, like she can see them through the walls, kind of like she can see a yellow mist. And yeah, I guess Barry Burton just takes her with him to protect her. But he doesn't like leave with her right away for some reason. Like he could just get on the boat and then drive back to Russia and be like, okay, here, police, take this girl. I'm going back to the island to get my daughter now. But no, he just takes her with him on this island full of monsters. So yeah. But she's flat and stuff. What do you mean? What? Who's flat? Okay. But yeah, Barry just looks for his daughter while Moira Burton and Claire Redfield are trying to escape the island. So there are quite a lot of elements that actually show that this is a Russian setting, aside from it being in the Baltic Sea, the island. Like, for example, she's flat and stuff. What? Huh? Really? When did I say that she's flat? Who's flat? Oh, maybe did I mean like she fled? Like FLED or something? I'm not sure. I don't quite remember. Maybe I'll have to watch the VOD again. Actually, let me just rewind. Like he could just get on the boat and then drive back to Russia and be like, okay, here, police, take this girl. I'm going back to the island to get my daughter now. but no, he just takes her with him on this island full of monsters. So yeah, takes her with her, like is being experimented on, but she like fled and stuff, and she fled, yeah, fled, FLED. Resident Evil 5 was just killing zombies and Wesker, being an asset. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Resident Evil 5. You're like just punching rocks. To be honest, Revelations 2 and 1 are really, like in my opinion, good Resident Evil games, as opposed to Resident Evil 5 and 6, which were kind of too action heavy for me personally. Like, I feel like Resident Evil Revelations 2 is kind of creepier. Like, it's still not ultra scary like Silent Hill, but it is still creepier than 5 and 6. Okay, so yeah, the why this is a Russian setting. Like, the island is near Russia, and there are like, you can find notes as is usual for Resident Evil or like survival horror in general, and it does actually say in Russian at the very beginning. Like here, you can see this like letter from a prisoner. Like, this is the actual letter, and at the beginning it's like in Russian, in like parentheses. And at one point you can actually hear like through a radio coming Russian voices coming through a radio. Then there are posters with Russian text, which you can see here. It actually says I can't actually, the fuck, how do you translate that to English? Commitment, devotion, rather, unity and work. Rich island. So it's pretty much a propaganda poster for the island, kind of. And you also have, like, even before you start the game, at the very beginning when you start the game, like, it's not before you start the game, right as you start the game, you have to adjust your brightness. And yeah, you can actually see Russian text here in the brightness settings, which says "Независимо изучить человека," which means let's see, independently, like researching the human, or researching the human body, researching humans independently. Still so unbelievably salty about Silent Hills being cancelled. Actually, I have good news for you. Let me actually pull them up. Like, it's not Silent Hills, but it's still good news. If I can find it. Yep, there we go. Give me a second. Okay. Do we have a source? Yeah, Eurogamer. Actually, I found. Oh no, that's a German site as well. Okay. I don't want to turn off my ad blocker. So yeah, Hideo Kojima actually tweeted that he wants to make there we go. As to make the scariest horror game, I'll watch the scary movies in order to awaken my horror soul. The Eye is the Thai horror movie I went making PT, but was too scary to finish watching. The package is scary, so I rented the disc only. Would I be able to finish watching? So yeah, he kind of is hinting at making a horror game next. Like, he wants to make the scariest horror game. Maybe. At least that's what they got from this tweet, like this German site. So yeah. So maybe you'll get something like Silent Hill, so maybe something even better. I just want to have that wombo combo of Hideo Kojima, Guillermo del Toro, and Junji Ito. That would be so awesome. Okay. Let's move on to the piece. One Chizatreika Bachavaya, which I will have to show you a video of probably, which I don't have here. Or do I? Yeah, I needed to. Wait. Oh, horror games. Maybe I should actually watch the movie too that he mentioned, like the Eye. It sounds pretty interesting. Okay, I can't actually find the video I meant. Let me look on YouTube. There we go. And this is just another quote. Like it plays in the factory, like Steven says, like Fabrika in Russian, which is Russian for fabric, over the building, and you can hear like Russian announcements while you're in there. And like at the before you're leaving, it's like, okay, everyone, it's time. Like it's just work announcement. It's like, okay, wake up, it's time to get to work or something. Then next is like, okay, it's time for a break. Go get some food. And at the end, it's like, okay, this was a good work day. Now go rest up so you can come back all fresh tomorrow. And after that last announcement, you can hear what Chizatreika Bachavaya, which is a Russian folk song, actually. Again, like it's not an originally composed song for this game, which is why it's probably not on the CD, not on the album releases of like the soundtrack from this game. So yeah, it's I don't know. What do we call this? I guess it's a quote, kind of a musical quote, just like it was the case for Soda Pepinski in Punch-Out. So yeah, let me show you what Chizatreika Bachavaya, the original. Like, keep how it sounded in mind. And here's the original. Melody is actually a bit different in that arrangement.
Тройка тихо подставая, по Волге матушке зимой. Ямщик уныло напевает, качает буйной головой. Ямщик уныло напевает.
Yeah. It's the same piece. What Mčica Trojka Pačamaya is a Russian folk song. Though it's textless in the video game. In original, it does, like, the original does have a text, but the video game doesn't. The Resident Evil version doesn't. So there are some articles on the lyrics actually of what Mčica Trojka Pačamaya, but yeah, I didn't regard them because the video game version or the Resident Evil version doesn't have lyrics. It does have singing, but they just sing ah and no actual text. The composer is known, and it actually gained in popularity around the 19th, like the end of the 19th century, up to the beginning of the 20th century. It's theorized that the now known text was written in 1901 by Leonid Nikolaevich Trefolev, and it's about a guy who rides a troika. A troika is, by the way, like a sled or like a carriage with 3 horses. So instead of 2 or 4, you have 3. So yeah, it's likely that they didn't actually use the song text in the Resident Evil version because it's hard to do like text per VST, especially Russian text. I don't think that's actually a possible thing. Like there are like choir VSTs that can do Latin well, or where you can actually set the phonetics and stuff, but I'm not sure if Russian phonetics are included, like the symphonic choir or the Hollywood choir by East West, the company East West. Like those are like virtual instruments, virtual choir instruments where you can input your own text. But yeah, and they probably didn't want to hire an actual choir, so they just used a VST choir that was like that just sang a, like ah, and that's it. So yeah, harmony and melody is almost the same. There are like a few changes. It's still like really easy to see that it is this piece, what Mčica Trojka Pačamaya. One thing that's different is the high tempo, kind of similar to how Soda Popinski's theme song had a really high tempo. Like here again it says umereno, which means slow, rather slower tempo. But the Resident Evil version has a pretty high tempo. And it's quite full as well. It has like a full march orchestra and a choir. And you can hear hey every now and then being sung in the Resident Evil version, which like both the tempo and the like full instrumentation kind of makes sense for that part, because right at that part, as the song starts playing, you actually get attacked by monsters. So it kind of is, again, like it's Soda Popinski's intro there for the excitement, to be like, okay, now stuff's going down. Like having a slow song for that, or like a really thin instrumentation, wouldn't really make that much sense. because it wouldn't really excite you. It wouldn't really fit the setting when you're suddenly getting attacked by zombies or monsters. So yeah, there are different ways to feel a player into a Russian setting, like Russian text, Russian voice recordings, like in the case of the radio, or like for the Russian text there were these posters, and it can kind of give players that aren't Russian a feeling of strangeness. It's foreign, it's alien. Like it's especially in a horror game like Resident Evil, it can actually be quite effective, because you're like in a country or like in a place that you don't quite understand, and like you not being able to understand what was written on the walls within the, like, on this island, or like this like there's this shield on the top of the factory, which says Fabrik in Russian letters. Like it gives you an odd feeling. It's like you aren't really supposed to be here, you don't really understand this place, and that can induce the fear as well. And or if you go away from horror into the like fantasy direction, or into the educational direction even, I guess. Well, yeah, I guess in both cases, you kind of get a magical feeling, because it's so different, because it's so strange and foreign. Like, there are probably not many people who, well, there are kind of, but not everyone can speak and understand Russian. So yeah. Or yeah, I guess in the case of educational games or edutainment games like the Gigglebone Gang World Tour, where you can hear a balalaika in one of the tracks, it can help you to learn more about the Russian culture. Like you learn the instruments. Like you hear a balalaika and are like, oh yeah, that sounds Russian, so I guess a balalaika is Russian. Or they are like, they use, for a dancing scene, they use something by Tchaikovsky. Or, yeah, I guess Tchaikovsky. So they kind of unconsciously, like for the kid unconsciously, teach them that these are Russian pieces, music that can be associated with Russia. Okay, and time to sum it all up. And spoiler, to criticize everyone who has ever used Russian music in video games. Like, not on a fundamental level, like using Russian music in video games is okay. It's just oftentimes used lazily, but we will get to that in a second. Okay, in most cases, as you will see if you ever look through this thing, if I do release it officially one day, most composers just use already made Russian music by Russian composers, like Tchaikovsky, Shostakovich. Those are like the big names, I guess, pretty much. Let's see if there are any other ones. Prokofiev, Rimsky-Korsakov, Mussorgsky. So yeah, to name a few. In many cases, they have already long died, so it's safe to use their music without having to license it. But that's the easy way. The harder way is to make original music that sounds Russian. A typical technique is the umpa rhythm, which I explained, like bass chord, like what you hear on an accordion, umpa, umpa, umpa. the usage of tremolos with balalaikas, or you can kind of cheat. You can also use a lute or a guitar and use the tremolo technique there. People might be able to tell that it's not really a balalaika, but it will sound close enough. And the usage of minor scales, of the minor scale. But that's not a lot. Like there's also harmonies, melodies, the form, like typical Russian harmonies, harmonic progressions, typical Russian melody, like lines, typical Russian form. Like there are way more ways to make a piece sound Russian, but the problem is knowing what makes it sound Russian, I guess. Like there are works about typical Russian art music. Like they didn't really like using motives, like some of them. Like they were like, okay, we don't want to use motives because the Westerners use motives, so we won't, or rather they won't develop motives. Like they will use motives, but they won't develop motives. But that's not quite useful for the audience, because the audience won't really like be like, oh yeah, that totally sounds like a Russian typical element, because no motives are getting developed. Like they won't really notice it as sounding Russian. There is one paper by Eugene Belyansky, who made a master paper. His master paper on the elements of Russian vocal folk polyphony, Russian village accordion repertoire, and Soviet tourist and travel songs. And he has a lot of statistics in that master paper. Like he has, actually, I might as well show you, because it's like awesome. Like it's my holy grail. Well, I have to download it first, it seems. So yeah, I didn't like talk much about that paper because it would be like way too long otherwise. But he has quite a few interesting points in there about the melody, about the harmonies, about the form. I'm gonna show it to you in a second. There we go. I think it's 419 pages long. Like really went ham on it. I might have to scroll further down to find what I need. Here's a lot of examples here. Okay. Oh, that's the appendix. One's too far. Okay, stuff like that, where it shows what chord progressions are usual. Or like, okay, these are actually... Okay, there we go, yeah, I found it. So stuff like... Okay, I'm not sure what that is quite because I didn't really look at it. I guess lyrics, tempo markings, like how often, like how many tempo markings are used in the piece that he analyzed, like Nie Spiesza at an easy pace is used the most, like 11% of the pieces that he analyzed used Nie Spiesza, meaning that you could maybe think that Russian music is generally rather slow, for example. That's one thing that you could think. The melodic characteristics, intros and codas, repeating the last portion of a melodic section, timing key signatures that are common, like 4x4 is the most common one. Some chord progressions. I think this one is especially like interesting because this major dominant 7 first, like the dominant seventh chord on the first step, first like chord, Roman numeral, into the minor chord, the fourth minor chord. My English music vocabulary isn't quite there yet, but yeah, it's quite typical for Russian music in my opinion. Like I've looked at quite a few Russian folk songs as well, like especially the most well-known ones over here in the West, and this is a typical thing here. So yeah, you could look at this and be like, okay, I'm gonna use some of these techniques for my own music as a composer, but composers usually don't read papers that much, I guess. They maybe read stuff in, let's see, in magazines, I guess. Yeah, in journals. They usually read like music journals, but not master papers. Or do like heavy, intense research. Like not all of them at least. So yeah, and another technique is of course using traditional Russian instruments, which is usually just reduced to the balalaika and the accordion, which is not a lot. Like it's two instruments. I mean, it's okay. It's like, yeah, people will be like, yeah, that sounds Russian. It's an accordion. And there's a balalaika that's played like in tremolo. That's totally Russian. But you can also maybe use stuff like trishotka. Or the rozhok, which I mentioned, which is a wooden trumpet, kind of. Where it says oboe here. Like it's classified as an oboe, but it's actually oboe. Yeah, oboe. Classified as an oboe, but kind of is like a wooden trumpet. Like in The Witcher 3, the Wild Hunt, a gusli is actually used. It's like a what's the word here? There's actually no translation. Let me show it to you in that case. There we go. That's kind of a gusli. Yep, these are guslis. There are two different types of guslis. These ones, they're a bit smaller, and these ones which are kind of bigger. But yeah, there are a lot of traditional Russian music instruments. Like I did a lot of research on them last year, and kind of sad to see that only two are used, which aren't even that traditional, like even that folk kind of, like even aren't old folk instruments. There we go, because the accordion was actually invented in the 1800s in Germany, and then came to Russia. Like it wasn't even a Russian instrument. I guess the bayan is kind of more Russian than the accordion. The bayan is like a. She might as well show you too what the bayan is. It's like an accordion, but with these things on both sides. What's up with this though? Is it like? Oh, it's a model, maybe? No, not sure. Not sure what's up with that. But yeah. And there's of course the option to go into the Russian music traditions. Like in the case of Resident Evil, they didn't use a pripevka, like Es Brula Kayavas, the song of the Volga boatman. Like that one's a work song, and they could have used that in the in the factory, because it makes sense to have a working song in a working environment. But instead they used a what's it called? A carriage song. So yeah, they use something totally not related to work. Instead, something that's totally unrelated, which is a carriage song, like a song about a carriage. In this case, a male troika. Or I guess there are other ones like Chastushki, which are like fun little songs. Guess I don't want to go too in depth on those. You can look up Chastushki if you want to listen to them. Or just like sad songs. I guess grievance songs. Yeah, grievance songs. Pretty much sorrow songs, songs of sorrow. During Russian like weddings, like not anymore, like since Russia has been kind of westernized, but it probably still is a thing in like the more rural parts of Russia, where because like the bride pretty much has to go away from her friends and family when she marries. Pretty much, I guess that's how it is in that tradition. So she actually sings songs of sorrow, and her friends also sing songs of sorrow, and her family. And this could be incorporated in video games as well, in video games with Russian settings especially. Like it doesn't even have to be obviously Russian to the viewer, like it can. But if you use things that aren't obviously Russian in video games, maybe coupled with musical traditions that do sound Russian, like a balalaika and an accordion, to help the player understand that this is supposed to be Russian music, then you get kind of a learning experience for them. Maybe they will be like, what the fuck? They're marrying, why is she crying? Or like singing these sad songs when she's marrying. And then maybe they'll look it up, or someone in the comment section, if they're like watching a video or a gameplay video, we were like, that's actually like a Russian tradition. And they learned something about Russian musical traditions. There's actually a video by Extra Credits, Tangential Learning, How Games Can Teach Us While We Play. Extra Credits is like a YouTube channel, which covers video game theory, as in like how to make good games, or like what games do that's interesting, kind of scientifically too, but also to the end consumer. Like you can check it out if you want to. Tangential Learning by Extra Credits. So yeah, all in all, this paper, like I maybe mentioned at the beginning, if you've heard it, I don't plan to translate the whole paper. I will only probably translate this part when I have the time, and extend it, and then let it roam free, because this paper is kind of still surface level. I feel like you could extend this table, for example, like that's one of the things. You can compare it to the national music of other countries, like I said, how is Turkish music used in video games, how is Chinese music used in video games, how is Japanese music used in video games. But all of these findings can be also used by composers or video game designers or audio directors to more effectively design the usage of Russian music and music with Russian elements in video games. So yeah, I guess the last last sentence on the topic here is that the actual original creation, like the creation of original pieces, and the effective usage of these in like Russian sounding pieces is not quite there yet. It hasn't quite matured yet, it hasn't quite ripened yet, and it has quite a lot of room to improve. Like I mentioned, like using more traditional Russian instruments that maybe aren't well known. Like it was like The Witcher 3 was quite progressive with its usage of Polish instruments. Like the gusli in this case is a Polish variant, not a Russian one. But they do use traditional Polish instruments in their music. So why not do the same thing with Russian music? If you have a game that is set in Russia. And yeah. Ooh, that's the meat of the paper. I just skim through the like last part here. By the way, if you want this paper, just let me know. I will send you the copy. It's going to be in German. So if you're not German or can speak German, you probably won't be able to understand it unless you just choose it through Google Translate, but you'll probably not get a good result. But yeah, you can still have it. So if you want it, I can send it to you. If just for this, so you don't, like for this table, so you don't have to wait for me to actually finish it. Finish translating and extending it. Okay, here are the games. Here are the ones who made the games. Here are the musical like pieces within the games or musical compositions. Then some extra knowledge about it, like Breath of Astral, which has from Alerts Online, which was made by the Alerts team, which has like Russian phrases thrown in every now and then, like Russian text. And the category that it fits in. In this case, the either the feeling into a Russian setting, or its production in Russia, which both can be a reason for this having like Russian phrases thrown in, or the Kanye Everest having like balalaika, like maybe balalaika tremolo sounds. Could also be a mandolin. But it does kind of sound like a. It could be definitely be a balalaika. So yeah, I have quite a lot of games here. Like I said, like 30 games, which is quite a bit. That's the transliteration table that I've already shown you. The emails, here's the email by Bill Kiley. So if you want to read that, you can like also get the, well, you can probably just pause the video and read it here. You don't have to ask me to send it over to you, like the paper. Like I won't send you the email, of course, but I mean technically it would be the same. I of course asked him if I could use it in my paper here. I think the consensus is like you can use emails, like these kinds of correspondences in papers. I mean, especially in like my case, where the lecturer is the only one who actually reads the paper, pretty much. But yeah, it's still usually common, like just a common form to still ask if you can use it. Yeah, like put it in the paper. The other one, the composer who made the Soviet March, who I wrote emails with, didn't let me, like he didn't say no, he just didn't answer at all. I like wrote him twice being like, hey, can I use our email correspondence? Like, can I put it in the appendix? But yeah, never got a reply. He's probably busy, so it's alright. Like my lecturer told me that it was too bad that he didn't let me put it in there. Like, but he believes me that I did write an email to him. Oh yeah, and here's the part about the Mario Odyssey level. Most of my music starts with horrible joke name, and in this case I'm stuck around until the end and accidentally became official. So yeah, now you know. Then we have the sources. Just 4 books, which maybe is kind of uncommon for musicology, like research papers, but in this case it kind of like there aren't many papers or like books or anything on this topic. So most of my sources were actually online sources, like websites. And yeah, I have a few pictures. I mentioned movies and series, like the stuff from The Simpsons with the thing that he blows into and then you hear Bulakaya. Music tracks, sheet music sources, and game, what's it called? Game directory, which is all of the games that I've talked about. Like the paper is small enough that I don't need to add the like a thing where it says what page I have talked about that game, like on what page I'm talking about that game. But it would have been an interesting thing to add as well. But I mean, I got an A, so maybe didn't need to add anything else. And then that last page is just me being like, yeah, I didn't steal. This was all written by me, myself. Or like, if I did quote someone or like repeat someone else's thoughts, that I have put them in the footnotes. Like there are a lot of footnotes, as you can see. But that's, I guess the thing that many people who write papers, like later on, like not the ones who are starting out like me, don't put these in the footnotes. They're, or like the long forms at least. They don't put the long forms into the footnotes. They're more like put them into the text, being like, okay, this person's book that was written in this year, or like just the name of the person, comma, year, and then the one who wants to see what book they're referring to goes all the way to the back. This way you have barely any footnotes. But in the case of students, you kind of want to have footnotes so that the paper looks bigger or longer, so you don't have to write quite as much. These were like 12, 13 pages. Let's see, page 3 up to page, well, kind of 14. So yeah, that's 12 pages, 12 and a half pages of fun. Okay. And that's pretty much it. Actually, what's a good page to end on? There we go. Just end on this. Okay. That's it. We did it. 2.5 hours. Holy moly. Exactly, no. Wait, in 30 seconds it will be a stream that has lasted 2.5 hours, I believe. Yeah. Okay. Like I said, if you want this paper, just shoot me an email. It's just gonna be in German, not in English. And I guess this starts my career as a ludomusicologist. Even though my next paper isn't going to be on video game music, but on electronic music. Though my bachelor's paper will probably be on ludomusicology in general, like a ludomusicological paper, video game music paper. Okay. Thanks a lot for listening. I hope you have enjoyed it. Thanks a lot again to Patrick, who gave me a lot of like extra sources for Russian music and video games. Thanks a lot to Alfred for being here, supporting me emotionally. Thanks to my cat for being nice and fluffy. I also want to thank my bottle for being here with me through this whole thing, providing me with hydration. I think I would want this paper for reference for making a paper for college later. Yeah, you can have it. I can send it to you later on Discord. But you will probably have to look at like your actual, like how your college actually tells you how to do these things, because this like German kind of the German way, even though it's kind of more or less consistent. You forget. Can I see? I don't think I have a picture of her Actually, let me look it up. Like, I don't have her here. I'm currently in my like university dorm kind of thing. But I do come to visit her every week. Okay, I guess that's kind of a picture. Here's a cat. She's totally black with a random white spot over here. And I should have another picture. I thought. Or maybe it was the only picture that I sent. Ah no, there we go. Mother sent me a picture as well. There she is. Being all black. And cute. Like, she isn't actually quite that black. Like color wise. This doesn't have anything to do with race. I'm just talking about her fur color. Like, it's actually kind of brownish. Especially if the sun shines on it. It's kind of brownish. Kind of black. You can kind of see it over here. But she's mostly all cute and black. Okay. Enough cat pics. I should probably like drink lots of water now, because I've talked for 2.5 hours, which is pretty brutal. But yeah. Okay, time for a break. And I will see you next time, which I don't know, a bit gray, yeah, kind of. So the thing is, I guess to give you like some, I should probably tell you what's coming up, maybe. Let me see. There are two things actually. Here. I have a presentation in 3 weeks, meaning I will probably have a stream on the weekend in 2 weeks, maybe next week, because the presentation is pretty much done. I will see, which is about how to analyze like the problems. Like, it's a mini presentation, just 20 minutes long instead of my usual 1.5 hours. Mini presentation on how to analyze songs from a video game. Like where the game's from, who made it, like who had to, like who supervised it, the creation of that song and stuff, since that's like kind of important points. Like the composer isn't the only one who kind of worked on the song. Like in the case of Soviet March, where Nick Laviers, the audio director, took the composition of the composer and just sliced it up and turned it into something different. So yeah. There's that, and my paper from last semester, about an analysis of Life Will Change from Persona 5. And I'm not quite sure if I will talk about it this semester. I might, because if I will, then probably after my presentation that I just showed you in university, because I'm still thinking about whether, like, about the topic, like what topic I'll write about. And if it ends up being kind of like a lot like this paper, like the paper that I wrote last semester, like it was half a paper, kind of. It wasn't like a full paper, which was graded. Like if it ends up being kind of same-ish, then I'll probably just write that new paper that is actually graded and extend it and present that then next year, instead of taking this kind of half paper and presenting that one. But we will see. But yeah, next up is definitely the one that I just showed, which is just 20 minutes long. And after those 20 minutes, we will just look at cat pics for the remainder of, like, usually streams are usually 1 to 2 hours long. So the rest, like 40 minutes long, we will just be looking at cat pics afterwards. So yeah, you can look forward to that. Okay, thanks a lot for listening again. It's time for me to go. already. Maybe I can end this with a meme song. Okay, I will end this with one of my favorite iterations of this piece. Or I play a random game. You're right. Okay. We'll see each other again in the future.